Welcome to the session 4 of Business Strategy and HRD course. And just to recap, uh, why I'm not getting the uh, of the last session. In the last session, we looked at the external environment, and we looked at that organization. Each organization is embedded into the external environment, and we considered three layers of that external environment. One was the general environment, macro environment, and if you remember, in the macro environment, we looked at pestle analysis, political, economic, social, cultural, legal, technological, environment, all these different sub-environment, and we looked at each of these and considered what is the impact they might have on the industry sector. And then we also looked at the middle layer, which is an industry environment. And there we went into details of the Porter's five forces. We looked at the first force, which he mentioned was the rivalry among the existing firms. And then second, of course, is the potential entrants, which means that more and more competitors might come into the field and that will pose a threat for you. We also looked at the substitutes, set of substitutes. Substitutes are the ones which come from the different industries, and but they serve the same purpose as what your product is doing it. So they are threat to your products. And then we looked at the supplier's power, and we considered various factors which might increase or decrease the supplier's power. And finally, we looked at the buyer's power. That means how buyers can exercise their power, which might impact your business. So these are the various this thing. Before we start the next session, next thing, there are certain terms in strategy which we are going to use very often, and I want to make sure that you understand the same. Your understanding is the same as what I have. Or competitive advantage. We use this term very much in our uh, general language. And what does it mean? What does it mean to have a competitive advantage? If a company is having a competitive advantage, its profitability is greater than the average profitability of all the firms in its industry. That means the competitive advantage means that the firm has some leverage over its rival, which is able to give its profit, which is higher. So competitive advantage is something which helps us in competing with the various rivals in the industry. But as you know, that competitive advantage, because of the changing environment, might not be there with you for a long time. Somebody else, some other rival might gain some competitive advantage, which might impact your profitability. So it is important for us to have sustained competitive advantage. You must have heard this terminology, sustained competitive advantage. Sustained competitive advantage means a, a company maintains the competitive advantage for a longer number of terms, in the long term. That means the competitive advantage remains with the company for a number of years, and that makes it safe. That means if you have the sustained competitive advantage, you may be profitable for a longer uh, number of years. So this is something which is, so every company, if you look at the objective of every company, its objective is to attain sustained competitive advantage. Sustained competitive advantage will give it a superior profit and the profit growth. So that is, these are two terms which are we are going to use: competitive advantage and sustained competitive advantage. Another term which we are going to use in our discussion in subsequent sessions is the key success factors. Key success factors for any industry are those attributes which will spell the difference between the profit and loss. Or let's say a successful company having key success factors taking care of the key success factors. If you don't take care of the key success factors, it might result in failure. And these KSFs are the various attributes of the industry, which whatever products which you are doing, products attributes or competencies or capabilities, they are ultimately the major determinants of for success. So let's look at the example. How do we identify key success factors for an industry? Key success factors are primarily determined by the customer's needs, what customers want, and if you identify what is their requirement, you may be able to get an idea of what could be the key success factors. Because whatever customers want, if you are able to provide that, if those same attributes which customer desires, that means you are going to be successful. On the other hand, you also can find out how does the firm survive competition? How does it fight with the rivals? And what are the factors which help the company to fight the rivals? So this will also determine the key success factors. Let's take an example. Now, I'm taking here is the apparel manufacturing industry, the industry which makes the dresses, clothes, and all that. So if you see, what customer wants is the appealing designs of the dress which you are, the color combination. It should be a reasonable price. So these are the requirement of the customers, and ultimately this gives you the key success factor. It means you will compete with the competitors by producing low cost, and it should be accessible. Good designs, low cost, and it should be accessible to wherever the customers are. So these are success factors. Let's take another simple example. What are the key success factors for a pizza delivery industry? Very easy, because this is something which all of us use. And so what drives customer choice? It's primarily we choose the pizza where the price is reasonable. We get all the information about the price so that we can compare this thing from one pizza delivery shop to another one. It should be close by. The food and service quality should be really good. So that is what our choice, these are the attributes which we require. And so KSF, key success factors for this industry will be number one, it should be location in the densely populated, because normally customers buy pizza from the nearby shop. Okay, so, and particularly the people who are working people, they order much more often than the full-time homemakers. So that is one key success factor. That means we have to locate our pizza shop in a densely populated place. And we have to do strong local promotion, direct mail or the local advertisements. We have to have the effective production system, which can result in low cost and consistent quality, and the cooking should be hygienic. Effective control on delivery personnel, they should be able to deliver the pizza very fast. And of course, finally, the strong brand, because brand also helps us in choosing this thing. So these are the key success factors. So these are three terms we should be using very often. One is the competitive advantage, sustained competitive advantage, and key success factors. Now let me ask a question. We discussed in the last session the external environment. Now, in the industry, there are a number of players, and they operate within the same external environment. But we have observed that there are certain companies which are more profitable, more successful than others. Why does it happen? If the external environment is same, everything is same, why one company has more profit than the other company? Can somebody answer this question?
I would like to try to answer, because whatever input last time you sent, I happened to read that Harvard Davis College article,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
little insight that resource building focus around the resource of the company, and that too, that should not be copied by other competitors. If
yeah,
that company strategizes in that way, it will
yeah,
definitely help in sustaining that company
yeah.
for long.
So what you're saying is that even if the external environment is same, the company which has got internal strength, internal
Yes,
resources,
yes,
uh, which is better than the other company, they
yeah,
will be able to generate more profit than the other company. So that's
yes,
this exactly is the reason, therefore, that we should really look at the internal analysis, and we should do the internal analysis. So this today's session primarily is focusing on internal, because that really makes a difference between the profit and the loss in the company.
yes.
So if you what
Yeah,
we
may I,
just yeah, yeah, yeah,
sir, may I, sir?
yeah,
Uh,
sure,
so wherein it is understood that the internal analysis would be a very important part of
yeah,
this entire process.
yeah,
But at the same time, while we are seeing as to what drives the profitability of one company over the other company, what would come first? I think it would be the analysis of the external environment, which will come in first, and see as to how the company has utilized that, and in
yeah.
case their utilization of the external environment or manipulation of the external environment has been at par with everyone else, then they will turn back to internal analysis, or both will go hand in hand together. Sir.
Yeah,
Definitely.
actually, yeah, your question is very valid, and we have to when we are developing a strategy, we have to do both external analysis as well as the internal analysis. External analysis gives us the uh, what are the opportunities and threats available in the environment. That means in the environment, um, where are the opportunities for us to do good business, what are the threats. So these are something which we have to analyze very carefully, and that comes from the external environment, studying the external environment. At the same time, internal environment will be able to give us as to what are our resources and capabilities. So if you see, uh, the external environment will tell us what we might choose to do, because in the environment where the opportunities are, what position which we are going to have in the market, and things like that. So it is gives us idea about what we might choose to do. However, uh, the internal these things, that means what is our capability, what we can do. So one is what we would like to, we would choose to do, and what we really can do. The internal analysis will be able to give us idea about what we can do and what are the resources and capabilities, because this is resources and capabilities are the things which we are going to use for creating value for the customers. So I think both are necessary. One cannot be. In fact, when we do the SWOT analysis, because um, external environment gives us opportunities and threats, internal environment gives us strengths and weaknesses. So SWOT analysis is something which we need to really do for developing our strategies.
So even creating a unique, if a company creates its own USP, even that will help the company to sustain
Yeah, yeah,
in
sure.
comparison to, with all the other its competitors within the same external environment.
Yeah, the USP is the really a resource, or the it is part of the internal strength. That USP means that this is something which we do much better than others, and that is where I think. So I think if you just wait for some time, because we are going to discuss on this little more in the this thing, and what you're saying is absolutely right. Okay, so the key sources for the superior profitability of various companies, they are the superior profitability comes from either two aspects. One factor is industry attractiveness, and second is competitive advantage. So external environment, which we studied, that will give us idea about the industry attractiveness. Remember that 5 forces of Porter will tell you which industry is attractive, which is not. So that is something which is, and the second is that we get competitive advantage based on our own resources and this thing. So if we look at the industry attractiveness, remember this chart which we had discussed in the previous session. Different industries have different profitability. That means some industries are more attractive than others. But then we also, and this is what Porter's 5 forces analyze. So whenever you want to decide about which industry we would like to do business in, we want to enter the market, and you want to decide which industry, I think you choose the industry and then do Porter's 5 force analysis, and it will give you a fairly good idea about whether the industry is profitable, is attractive or not. Yeah. But as we discussed last time also, in the same industry, there are certain players which are making profit. Some players are not making profit. So industry factors account for only 20 to 30% of the inter-firm profitability. But the resources and capabilities are the primary sources of competitiveness and profitability. So, and particularly when you see that the external environment is subject to rapid change, and it's rapidly changing, then in that case, you have to depend a lot more on the internal sense, that is resources and capabilities, for getting the competitive edge. Okay, so that's where I think the internal analysis is much more crucial to find out what are the factors which can give us the competitive advantage. Internal capabilities will be able to, how we going to compete in the external environment. I think internal analysis will be able to show us how to develop this strategy. In fact, as you mentioned, USP, you may be able to, based on your internal strengths, you may be able to create new products and determine the ways of creating more value for the customer based on your USP. So we're going to discuss that. So that's where I think advantage of doing a good analysis of the internal environment is very crucial. If I mean, I think all of you have known about Canon. Canon is a company which is making cameras, and it used to also, it has also developed basic fax and fax machines, plain paper copier, color copier, inkjet printer, laser printer, calculator, notebook, number of products. And all these products are the result of 3 technologies which they have mastered: precision mechanics, fine optics, and microelectronics. So if you have a lot of strength in certain areas, certain technologies, for example, in this case, then you may be able to come out with various new products and services. Okay, so this is, if you let me take another example, 3M. All of us know that 3M company is one of the companies which has got more than 30,000 products, and these products, this company has expanded from sandpaper, scotch tape, road signs, videotape, post-it notes, which is quite useful for all of us, surgical tapes, floppy disks, number of pharmaceutical. Now, all these products, they are results of certain capabilities which 3M have developed in-house, and have always been enhancing their resources and capabilities in order to bring out new product development and introduction into the commercial world. So that is the strength of the internal capabilities which are required. Okay, so these resources and capabilities are the key factors in our internet analysis. And you know what resources are? Resources are the assets which are owned by the company. And these resources could be of two kinds. One is tangible and other is intangible. What are the tangible resources? Uh, you may all know that tangible resources are the ones which are, let's say, land, building, plant, physical resources, which are, and also the financial resources. The resources which we can touch, which we can see and touch and sort of a smell and whatever. So these are the resources. Resources are physical and financial resources, tangible resources. And I think they are very crucial for each business. And others are the intangible resources. As the name says, suggests that intangible resources are the ones which we cannot see, we cannot touch. They are. And what are the intangible resources? Reputation resources. For example, brand name. Brand name is a huge resource. If a company has got a strong brand, that is a great resource, which is intangible. Innovation resources, you have patents, technology, technological and know-how, marketing know-how. All these are intangible resources, but they are very, very crucial. Very, very crucial. Even culture, organization culture, it is an intangible resource. It could be a very powerful resource for a company, which is intangible. Human resource. Human resource, are they assets or they are they are not assets? Is something which we define is something which is owned by the company. The human resources are not really owned by a company, but they are controlled. So there is a employment contract which says, okay, that you're going to serve the company and so on and so forth. So it's controlled by the company. So human resource also is a resource which is very, very crucial. So let me ask you a question. Between the tangible and intangible, which resources do you think are more valuable for a company? Should company be more bothered about tangible, or should it be more bothered about intangible resources? Any
Sir,
response?
Sir,
a startup, a startup or a new company
Yeah.
would be more concerned with the tangible resources.
Okay, fine.
A company, for it to have sustained profitability or sustained competitive advantage, as you had mentioned earlier, will
Yes.
require intangible resources in terms of its reputation of its brand, in terms of the patent and the technology. A prime example of this would be Apple's.
Yeah. 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 The brand is very powerful. Yeah. So between tangible tangible resources, as you mentioned, that it is very it became more crucial for the startup stage. Now, but let's talk about the companies which are running companies, and for running companies which are there and doing business, intangible resources are more valuable. They become basis for the competitive advantage to a much larger degree than the tangible resources. What could be the reason for this? Why intangible are more valuable?
so the intangible resource like the brand name is built over a period of time. So the trust that has been generated is immense, and that cannot be got back in one day. So even
Yeah,
the patents, like the Merck has been given an example, the pharmaceuticals,
yeah,
MNCs, the patents is an intangible resource. They really work on. Nobody can actually copy that.
yeah.
So this is something why this is more valuable to my.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. Tangible resources like you have a land, building, plant, and all that. These can be bought by any company. So they are. You can always buy a certain building if you feel that that is not giving you competitive advantage. You can, but the intangible resources, like you mentioned about the brand, or let's say even organizational culture, this is developed over a period of time. It takes years of companies' efforts to create a brand. to have a strong brand. It takes years to have a great organizational culture. So the thing which has taken a long time to develop, and it's quite a effort which companies put in creating their brand and creating the culture, and so that's why they become much more valuable. They become much more important, crucial for the success of the organization. So these are resources, but then resources alone may not be able to give you results. What results comes from the capabilities. And what are the capabilities? Capabilities are uh, things which a firm does with the assets. Assets alone will not be able to give. For example, let's say for a small medical clinic, if you have a surgeon, we have all the resources available. But unless those all the resources, we have a surgeon, we have anesthetist, we have nurses, we have operation table, operation room, and all that. But unless all these people together are able to do in a collaborative way, the operations may not be successful. So you have to develop the capabilities are created by some routine behavior. That means there's this operating procedure, everybody follows that procedure and consistently follows procedure again and again, and that's how the capabilities are generated. So capabilities really emerge over a period of time, and that's why their capabilities are intangible. They're not tangible. They get created over a period of time. Number of people. It's also a cross-functional uh, uh, sort of activities. You know, we join number of other specialties together to develop a capability. Okay, so these like I mentioned in the canon, so all the three technologies which were there, like precision mechanics, fine optics, and micro, all the three integrated together to create a capability of uh, producing new products. So these capabilities are very crucial. Ultimately, it is they are the foundation of really expertise and knowledge of the. But it is capabilities also means that we have to have knowledge in the people there, and the knowledge. But then all the activities are integrated together to develop a capability. Now, capability ultimately results in what we call competency. The competency is something uh, which an organization is uh, is good at doing. You know, if you're doing something good in a good manner, produce results. That is, you have a competency. The competencies are really the resources and capabilities which are ultimately become the basis of the competitive advantage. So these competencies get built through over a time by accumulation of all the learnings which you have been doing again and again and all so on. So like in case of, if you see, uh, when you ride the bicycle, it becomes our competency that we can ride any bicycle. But it has emerged over a period of time. When we started off, we fell number of times over the cycle, and we struggled to learn how to balance the cycle and all that, and then only ultimately we develop it. Similarly, organizations also, when they start any activity, and if they become good in that, only after repeated this thing and all the learnings which get accumulated over a period of time, and then we develop. So um, this is competency. Competency ultimately is something which you are good at. But when you are good at something and that you feel so confident in that competence that it becomes a central part of your strategy, then we call it a core competence. That means a core competence is something which become the basis of our strategy, because we are good at doing it, and we are pretty good at doing it. That means we are able to now compete in the market. So our strategy will depend on, will be based on the core competence. Core competence is, let me give you some example to for you to see. For example, Canon is good in integrating multiple technologies, so that has become uh, the core of the strategy. Similarly, Walmart, as you know, Walmart has been able to develop certain competencies in creating a very efficient supply chain management. Particularly, cost efficiency is very high because Walmart is now known for the selling the cheapest at the cheapest price all the material whatever is available in Walmart, and that they have been able to do it, and they're still making good amount of profit, and one of the biggest company in the world, because they have developed the core competence of an efficient supply chain management. And that has come because of their vendor management has been very good. They negotiate with the vendors very rightly. They have the point of sale uh, data analysis very much, and so on and so forth. Similarly, if you see that 3M, which we talked about, that is core competency is new product development. Caterpillar is another company which manufactures earth moving equipment, but their after sales service is very good, and that is the core. And normally Caterpillar is very well known, and its brand, and it's having a competitive advantage because of the its after sales service. Toyota, which is again one of the world leaders in automobile, they have core competency in manufacturing very high quality products. So this is something which we, and so on. So Amazon, of course, we know that it is its core competency is how it can really supply the uh, material in a very short period of time and use the logistics very well. So these are the core competency which we, but there is another term which we use very often is distinctive competency. Now, a core competency becomes distinctive competency when it does better than all the rivals. You know, so if you have honed your core competency, or you further enhance, strengthen core competency in order, and becomes the world's best, or let's say better than all the competitors, it is your distinctive competency. The distinctive competency is the really valuable capabilities, because no rival can match that. So that is, and that is where you will be getting the what you call huge competitive advantage, which ultimately can give you a sustained competitive advantage. So I think uh, one of the very, there are again examples. Toyota really is having that distinctive competency, because it people have tried to copy the competency of low cost, high manufacturing, but nobody is able to copy it. So they have a distinct. Intel, as you know, that they are in the they uh, design and manufacture microprocessors and all that. Their capability, because their R&D is so good that they have a distinctive competency to bring out newer designs and do it in a and manufacture it in a mass scale and bring down the cost. Ultimately, their competency is not being able to. Similarly, Walmart, we discussed that. So, if you really understand the competency, competency is the a mere competency, if you call competency, is the uh, real proficiency in performing an internal activity. But when that proficiency you start using to become a central for your strategy and central for your competitiveness and profitability, we call it a core competence. And we call it a distinctive competence when you are able to do it much better than other rivals. So you can imagine a tree, and tree has got end products are the ones which are leaves and the fruits and all that, and the core competencies are really the roots. So if you have a very strong roots and core competencies, they will result in end products which are very good. So now we discussed that resources and capabilities give you distinctive competencies. And capabilities and resources put together ultimately create certain competencies which become a distinctive competency, and they are the ones which are used for the strategy. And then that now strategy can also, it's not a linear relationship between distinctive competency and strategies, because you can also, people do have strategies which can further build newer resources, newer capabilities in order to keep pace with the changing environment. And so distinctive competencies can also keep on getting honed and keep on getting sharpened ultimately. And these strategies will give you competitive advantage and ultimately results in the superior. So strategies are the ones which ultimately give you a competitive advantage, which is resulting in the superior profitability. Now, when you talk about the profitability, we are really dealing with the three basic factors. And this, understanding of these three basic factors is very crucial for us to understand the dynamics between the three factors in order to ensure that we are able to have a proper strategy. Now, what are these factors? One is cost. Everybody knows cost. Cost means what has the company spent on creating that product. Cost of manufacturing, cost of delivering a product to the customer. So that is, companies have spent this thing. Next term is a price. Price is what company charges its customers for its product. That's very simple. I think all of us know these two terms very, very clearly. There's a third term which is called value or utility. Now, utility is something which customer gets from owning that product or consuming that product. Value or utility is something, the kind of satisfaction a customer gets from owning that product. So, are you clear about what is the utility of a product? Okay, let's understand a little more. Now, this diagram will show the relationship between all the three parameters. Cost, we know, cost is the cost of manufacturing. That means what company has spent in creating that product. P, price is something which which means that this is what we are charging the customer. Utility is something which is a kind of satisfaction which a person is getting, consumer is getting out of owning. This utility means, now let me ask you a question. Can utility be lower than P? Can U be lower than P? Anybody?
Yes, sir, I think it can be.
How can
The
it
company, if the needs of the customer is not fulfilled, sir, the utility that customer might think for that price which he has given is less, then
yeah,
he
so
would be
then
dissatisfied.
you're right. In case utility happens to be lower, then the customer will not purchase. Customer will not be buy that stuff. That product will not be bought. So a consumer buys that product only if he is getting more satisfaction than the amount which is spending for buying that. Okay. So
Examples are a movie. We gone with a very high expectation to watch a movie, and if it is not worthwhile, the utility is very less. We are not feel entertained.
Yeah, but your buying process at the time of buying that product, buying the ticket, you expected to get higher wealth utility, right? So this transaction of buying takes place only if U is more than P. If it is less than P, of course, you will never buy again. You never buy that. You never go to that movie again. Okay. So I mean, you can just to keep in your mind, understand this U better. Consider U as the willingness to pay. So if your willingness to pay is higher, then only you will buy. If willingness to pay is lower, then you will never buy. That means you will never spend, you will never purchase that item where the U is lower than P. You will always do it when your willingness is, but you may get, your U may be higher than P. U is almost always higher than P. At the most, it will be same as very close to U. And then C, of course. So if you really look at these terms, if we look at umbrella, that umbrella at the right corner, and if umbrella is costing the company 200 rupees to manufacture, it is and it is selling at 260 rupees. What is the profit? Profit is 60 rupees, right? P minus C is the profit. But the person may be getting a value which is of 300 rupees. That means he was ready to buy because of the heat or because of the rains and all that and whatever. So he was prepared to buy, let's say, up to 300 rupees, but he paid only 260 rupees. So between 300 and 260, that 40 rupees is considered as the consumer surplus. The consumer surplus means consumer gained 40 rupees as a surplus because he spent only 260 rupees. He got the value, he got the satisfaction of he was willing to pay 300 rupees. So this 40 rupees is consumer surplus. P minus C is the profit. And U minus C is what value got created by the company. Company spends C amount, that's the cost of production, but it created value which became almost as high as 300, but ultimately it sold for 260 rupees. Is that little clear?
May I, sir?
Yeah.
So I am not clear with this.
Please repeat
Sorry, this concept is not clear.
Okay,
How-
okay.
So how can we know that this would be the consumer surplus? How can this be, ascertained?
Because you're ready to pay up to 300 rupees. Let's say, let me tell you another example. The cost of manufacturing of umbrella is 200, and the guy is selling for 260 rupees. You find that this is too expensive, and but then now supposing you're going in the sun, and suddenly it starts raining very heavily, and you want to protect yourself from the rains, and you see some shopkeeper which is selling umbrellas, and in case he is selling at 260, you are ready to buy for 300 also because you need it very badly. So
that would be desperate buying then,
Yeah, okay. Desperate buying means at that time, I've given an example for desperate buying because that is time your willingness to buy is very high, and that is where. So willingness to buy, your U is 300, but the guy is, the shopkeeper is giving you for 260. So you feel good that you got something you're willing to buy. So U is a concept. Nobody can determine U very accurately. It is a concept which gives you that your willingness to buy is higher than the price. So you always buy stuff when your willingness to buy is more than the price which is getting. Otherwise, you will never be able to buy. That means
So this means, sorry, you mean to say U represents the willingness to buy, irrespective.
Yes,
Irrespective of the price.
Sir, can we say
but not irrespective of the price, your willingness to, if the price is more than the willingness to buy, if the shopkeeper is selling it for 320 or 310, you probably will not buy because you're willing only up to 300. Now, you might say that the price, why there's a gap between the price and the U? If supposing the cost, and you have seen that in a very rainy season, the price of umbrella goes up, right? Because the supplier, the shopkeeper, he knows that the willingness to buy is higher, so he increases the price in order to gather more profit. Okay, so P increases, then he gets, let's say P is made 280, so he get 80 rupees as a profit. So this P depends on as a shopkeepers decide P on what basis? Because they decide P on the basis of the willingness to pay. Now, if supposing they have one shopkeeper decided to give it 290, that means he's going all the way up to willingness to pay. What happens is other shopkeeper reduces the price. He makes it at 280. All the customers go towards the other shopkeeper. So that's why the shopkeepers he finds a balancing kind of price, and he determines the price which is in with respect to the market conditions, other shopkeepers this thing, and considers that he is going to attract customers at this price. So the difference between U and C, if there's that gives you the flexibility of making the price. Okay, let's give you example. I think it will be clearer. It will be clearer the examples. Now, supposing we go to the same example of the black umbrella, and this is the initial state. Now supposing the shopkeeper, he feels that the that black umbrella, he wants to increase the U part. He wants to give higher value to the customer, and he gives the higher value to the customer by making a multicolored umbrella. Multicolored umbrella gives the customer more satisfaction because it looks beautiful. So he has increased the value. The value becomes now 330. He also had to increase his cost because he had to increase number of other different color cloths. So his cost goes up to 210. And now he increases the price also to 280. Now that means he has got more profit by increasing U, by increasing the value, by bringing out a colorful umbrella. So what people do is they increase the value of U, utility value, make it more attractive, make it more, the additional features can be added. Whatever you add certain more differentiation, some additional attributes to the product, and with that attribute, the willingness to buy goes high. That means U increases. You might have spent some more cost, but then you have a much more bigger flexibility to determine, to fix the price, and you can fix the price which will give you a better profit. Okay, so that is one. So every time you increase your value, you have option to raise the price to have more profit on this. You can also do one more thing. You can lower the price. Now, supposing the same colorful umbrella, he had increased the value to 330, but then he has been reducing the price from 260, made it 250. Now, what will happen when he makes 250? The consumer surplus becomes very high. This consumer surplus has become 80. And a lot of people feel very good that they are getting a better umbrella at a lower price. So he gets a large number of customers. When he gets large number of customers, his cost of production goes down because of the economies of scale, and his cost of production has gone down to 180. He still makes much more profit. So you see, there's a dynamic relationship among these three factors: utility and the price and the cost. So you can, depending on what you would like to do, you can do that way. You can reduce the price and gather more and more customers in your kitty, and then you can increase your cost in production and therefore reduce the cost. So see, that way, if you are able to increase the gap between U and C, you would have much more options to fix the price. Is it clearer now? Slightly? Let's give example, real life example. There are two very big automobile manufacturers, General Motors and Toyota. Toyota is well known for giving a very high quality cars compared to General Motors. So, and their brand is very powerful. So they have got a higher utility. So Toyota has got a very high utility, and it is better than the General Motors. Now, in case of that's why they can charge much more. They can charge, price also is higher. The price of each car is of Toyota car, but still people go for that because the profit margin of Toyota is much bigger than the profit margin on each car of the General Motors. Toyota can gets a profit about $1,000 for each car, while the General Motors gets about 700. So that is primarily because they can charge a price much higher. And also Toyota has been able to reduce the cost. It is low cost manufacturer. So what happens is Toyota spends about 32 hours of labor for each car, while General Motors spends about 34 hours of labor per car. That means the cost of manufacture is also low. Now what happens is for Toyota, the U and C, the difference is much larger compared to U and C of the General Motors. And therefore, they are able to have a much bigger margin of the profit than General Motors. So a superior value creation really requires the gap between U and C to be greater than your competitors. You can determine the price price will become flexible for you to generate more and more profit. Okay, so this particular example has been able to give us some idea about if we want to determine, if we want to have a competitive advantage, we should do two things. We should either reduce cost, that is cost advantage we should have, or we should be able to increase utility, increase U, which is, that means we should start making our products with additional features or style or the more attractive. And so that is differentiation. You should be able to make some differentiation between your product and the rival's product. If you can do that, you increase the utility. So these are the two ways we can generate a huge competitive advantage. Lower cost, that means same product we are giving at low cost, or a different product which we are giving at a slightly higher price. So now the question, when we look at the internal environment, the question is that we know that we should be able to have a capability of reducing cost, or a capability of having the increasing utility. So do we have these capabilities? That is a question now. When we do internal analysis, we should ask this question: do we have a capabilities to reduce the cost compared to our rivals, or do we have the capability of increasing U vis-a-vis the rivals? This thing. So in that case, what we have to see is our value chain. you understand what the value chain is? Value chain really is a number of activities which each company does in order to convert the inputs into the output or into a product. That means we get the number of inputs, raw materials and other inputs which we get, and do operations on that, ultimately deliver the product to the customer. And all these activities within the company are part of the value chain. The value chain is really is primarily, all companies have value chain, by the way, whether it's a product company or the service company. Each company gets certain resources, certain inputs, and those inputs then they keep on adding value to those inputs, ultimately deliver a product or a service which is of much higher value. So this is the primary activity. I mean, the value chain has got primary activity and support activities. Primary activities are the ones which are, for example, inbound logistics, how we get the material from raw material, etc. We put them in warehouse and we use them. Operations is something which we do on the raw material and add components. Outbound logistics is something for the distribution, marketing and sales, and then the customer service, after sales service, and let's say. So this is a totally primary activities, and each of these activities adds value onto the inputs. There are secondary activities which support the primary activities. They are the human resource, technological development, R&D and all that, purchase, finance and all those. These are support activities. They also help these primary activities in adding more and more value. This is all the activities each company has got. Now, all the functions of a firm which can be helpful, all the functions, all the activities can be helpful in reducing the cost or increasing the utility. So that's where I think the strength lies, that we should be able to reduce the cost of various activities in order to have the products at the lowest cost. Or we should be able to, by using these activities, we should be able to do in such a manner that we add more value compared to the rivals. And by adding more value, we are increasing our utility. So these are organizational capabilities. We have to identify. It is not very easy to identify the capabilities because of a company, because they are cross-functional, So that is where I think the strength of the capability lies in, that no competitor is able to really copy that, because they are so complex. The way we are doing the job, the key activities which we are doing are in such a manner that the competitor is not able to get a hang of it and then copy and do the same way as we are doing. For example, 3M, the product development capability is something which not many people have been able to copy it. Similarly, case with the Apple. Apple got a great capability of technological capability as well as the market insight which they have. And this capability is not being able to copied by various other people. Now, if we want to determine that, we have to determine, in fact, that which are the resources and capabilities which gives us a strong competitive advantage. So we have to appraise our resources and capabilities because those resources and capabilities can only give you the value creation. So there are two parameters on which we have to appraise. One is what is the strategic importance and what is the relative strength of each capability. So in order to determine the competitive value of the resources, we have to see whether resources are valuable. That means they are able to create the cost advantage or differentiation advantage, whether they are able to create some new product or something, or they are competitively superior. Another competitive value comes from the rareness, that this is a capability. If we have got a capability which is rare, nobody else has got it, that is a huge value of that capability. And third one is inimitable. If it cannot be copied, if it's very hard to be copied, inimitable. Inimitable means that you are not able to imitate it. It is very hard to copy. And non-substitutable in the sense that nobody else can come with some other different kinds of capability which can this thing. So there are 4, and this is a test which we do, that if you want to test whether resource and capability can give you a competitive advantage or not, we have to find out whether it's valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable. So this is a test. It's called a VRIN test, VRIN. So any capability, if you want to, we have 5 capabilities with us, let's say in a company. If each of these capability we have can assess whether it can give us the competitive advantage. If none of these questions, whether a resource is valuable, or is it a rare, is it imitable, or it is substitutable, if the answer is that it is not valuable, it is not rare, it is not inimitable, it is not this thing, so then that means we do not get a competitive advantage from that capability. We are going to end up with a below average return. In case the capability happens to be valuable, that means the answer is yes, but rest of the 3, answer is no. That means it's valuable, but it is not rare. That means you can only have a partly competitive distance, average return you'll get. But in case a capability is valuable and it's also rare, nobody has got this capability, that means you have a temporary competitive advantage and you get a above average return. But then in case all the answers are yes, that means it is not only valuable, it is rare, and it is inimitable. Nobody can copy it also. And it cannot be substituted. Now, if that is the case, that capability will give us a sustainable competitive advantage. And it will always gives us above average return. And that's what, but then let me be very frank, there's hardly any, very few resource and capabilities satisfy all the criteria of the yes, all the 4 questions of VRIN. That means it's very difficult to have a sustainable competitive advantage. If you have something sustainable, if you have answers today, yes for all this, over a period of time, people are either able to imitate it, or they find that it's not rare, or they can substitute with this. So it's very difficult to have a sustainable competitive advantage. We therefore need to keep our resources and capabilities renewed all the time. That means we have to keep renewing our capability in order to have these things. So ultimately, if we have to focus on our key strengths are the ones which is strategic importance. The value is very high, and compared to our competitors, its strength is very high. So it is 2x2 matrix of strategic importance and relative strength with respect to the other rivals. If a strength is highly important, strategic importance very high, and you have got a very high strength compared to this thing, that is your key strength. In the SWOT analysis, the key strengths are determined by this 2x2 matrix. It is not only very important, it gives a lot of value, and it satisfies the REN, and however, it is also something with respect to your competitors, it's a very high strength. These are the key strengths. That means we have to focus on this particular column, where key strengths and key weaknesses. So key strengths are the ones which we have to keep on exploiting all the time and get more and more this thing. Key weakness is the one where either we have to remove it or we outsource that capability. We get it from other thing or we acquire certain things. There could be something superfluous strength. Superfluous strength is the one which is not of strategic importance. So that is another one which is there. You don't have to worry too much about the superfluous strength. However, you should not be investing too much of this thing. And if you can convert it into some strategic differentiator, that's better. Otherwise, you can leave it alone. Ultimately, focus on your key strengths in this thing. Now, there could be, so these are certain competencies, but there are, I would like to mention to you about some generic distinctive competency. Generic distinctive competency means they can be applied, these competencies can be developed for all businesses and all services, whether they are manufacturing or the service, but they are applicable and in all the industries and will give you a competitive advantage. So that's why they're calling it generic distinctive competency. Each company should have distinctive competencies which can be, which can give a competitive advantage. So this distinctive competencies lowers the cost structure and it also gives us utility. So there are 4 distinctive competencies which are generic. One is superior efficiency, second is superior quality, third is superior innovation, and fourth is superior customer responsiveness. Let's discuss quickly on the superior efficiency. Efficiency, as you know, efficiency is really the output over input. If you are using less input for creating output, that is much more efficient. That means it really reduces the cost because the same output you're using at the lower inputs. That means it helps us in making a low cost structure. So efficiency is good means if you are using less number of people to give the same output, that means you're reducing the cost of this thing. Second is quality. Quality means that you can charge high because quality is good, your U is going to be high, and that's why you. Or it can also, if your quality is good, you will probably have less rejection, and that will also cost lower cost. So in both the ways, you can always have a higher price. For example, in case of umbrella, if you have a very high, beautiful, you improve the quality, you can always charge high. Customer is going to pay you much more. Third is innovation. Innovation is of 2 kinds. One, a product innovation, which can always give a better product and give you better pricing options. You can increase the price. Or there could be process innovation. Process innovation is something you can create a process which lowers the production cost. So innovation can help both by increasing the U part and also lowering the costs part. And the fourth one is responsiveness to customers. Customers always are looking for a more responsive company, which can give you a much more. For example, customer would prefer to have an umbrella which can be kept in a bag, let's say a foldable umbrella. That is a responsibility, which is a need of the customer is to have this thing. Or customer is looking for much faster delivery of pizzas, for example. Much more customer response time is much more. So I think it can always, customer pays much higher value. You can increase, if you are responsive to customer, you can increase the price. So if you see, by efficiency, generate efficiency, you can reduce the cost. If you have better quality, you can either reduce cost or you can high price. By innovation also, you can have a lower cost or higher price. And similarly, by customer responsiveness, you can have a higher price. So ultimately, if you look at the resources and capabilities generate distinctive competencies, which can distinctive competencies can also have a generic competencies, which we mentioned here, and these result in differentiation or low cost, and that creates higher value and higher profit. So these are the now how to build capabilities. We'll probably take it up into the next session. One of the other sessions um, on HRD, how we build. Just to quickly mention that we can develop certain capabilities internally over time by hiring experts or by developing through training and all that, or we can have R&D, which new product development, which can bring us some capability, resources, knowledge management. Okay. Also, we can acquire from outside by merger. We'll talk about it in our strategy. By merger or acquisition of certain capabilities, we can have this thing, or we can have alliances or association with certain companies, or buy from the resource market certain software applications and acquire certain capabilities from others. So this is what we want to cover in today's session. I'm open for questions which you might be having.
Sir, I would like you, if you can explain, you had one slide on the roots of competitive advantage. It was one of your slides.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
like to understand that entire
Okay.
flow chart of that,
Okay.
because
Okay,
can
fine.
elaborate on that.
Roots of competitive advantage.
Yes, sir.
Ultimately, competitive advantage comes from our internal resources and capabilities, because these resources and capabilities are the ones which ultimately, when we convert these resources and capabilities to distinctive competencies. Distinctive competencies means something which we do much better than our rivals. And if we do much better than the rivals, we are able to have either products or services which are having differentiation. That means they are unique and customer is able to pay you much more than the other. Or if the distinct competencies can also result in lowering your cost. Lowering your cost means that means you are able to have the low cost. And by these two differentiation or cost, we create more value, which gives us a higher profit. So this
So
is
not this, sorry, it was not pertaining to this slide. The slide initially, when you started explaining the roots, it was about strategies, and in that flow chart, you had mentioned strategies also.
okay.
That slide,
Okay, I'm going back to that.
please. Thank you, sir.
Here.
Yes, this one.
It is exactly the same slide, but in a terminology here.
So I wanted to understand that strategies will build resources, and those resources and capabilities will develop distinctive competencies,
Yes.
which
What
will
happens is,
again, yes, please.
normally resources and capabilities ultimately give distinctive competence, and we formulate our strategies based on the distinctive competency. What competencies we are going to use to ultimately get competitive advantage. This is going to be discussed in the next session, how we use these resources and capabilities to develop this strategy.
So
This
my
is,
question was, will strategies influence the competencies,
oh
or
yeah,
competencies would influence the strategy?
yeah. No, it works both ways. That resources and the competencies really determine the strategies, and when we are operating on the strategies, we find that distinctive competencies which we have, our rivals are also able to develop those competencies or similar competencies. And then in that case, our strategy should again be there to renew our resources and capabilities to have better distinctive competency. And that's where the strategies work on, again, resources and capabilities in order to renew our distinctive competencies and have again the same sharpness in our distinctive competency in order to have a competitive advantage. Otherwise, distinctive competencies tend to fade away over a period of time, or tend to our rivals are able to get a hang of our distinctive competencies, and they become much more um, they also improve their distinctive competency. So our strategy should also be there to keep on renewing our distinctive competencies, enhancing our distinctive competencies. And that's where this feedback loop, which is there, which you see here, the feedback loop, building, renewing the resource and capabilities. Okay. And as far as strategy is concerned, we are going to discuss that in the next session, how we use our competencies to build strategies.
In fact, sir,
So,
I would
sir,
like
first
to.
a competency comes in to picture, or a strategy comes to the picture. That is what I'm not yet clear on that.
No, no. Based on the competencies, you develop strategies. Okay. So you have the organization which has got the certain capabilities, and you start finding out what is it that we can do much better. And based on that distinct competencies, you develop.
Then we shape our strategy. Okay.
Shape.
That's it. Okay, fine, sir. Thank you.
Any
fact,
other questions? Yeah. Any other questions?
It's not a question actually. So I would like to add, because this type of strategy, which I could see currently flowing in my organization, where they have selected some distinctive competencies, and this distinctive competencies was not by their own internal assessment, but they enrolled some customer survey, and customers gave them that yes, the science is your distinctive, the people are here, and then they have started working on that strategy. So it is basically a very right way to go with the customer and analysis to have that distinctive strategy and then move on.
Yeah, to identify the competencies, we have to have number of ways. We can identify a competency based on the customer's feedback, or mainly customer. If customer starts liking certain things, certain activity which we do very well, and that we start understanding that, okay, this is, I mean, if you really apply this concept in your own career progression, number of times we do not know what are our distinctive competencies ourselves. It is our colleagues, our bosses, they help us to identify that this is something which we do much better, and then we come to know that this is our distinctive competence, and then we further enhance those competencies. So I would suggest in your personal strategies of career growth, this today's session can be very useful. Each one of us should start identifying our own personal resources, personal strengths, personal competencies very well. And we should be able to know that what is it that we do much better than our competitors in the organization. And it is that strengths and competencies which we need to apply much more in our jobs in order to get competitive advantage with respect to the other competitor, and that will help us in moving much higher in our hierarchy, in our promotions and career growth and all that. So we need to continuously look at our distinctive competencies and keep on improving that. If I can give an example, Sachin Tendulkar, for example, who is an excellent batsman, and if he gets a ball which he's not able to handle properly, you see that he in the air he moves his bat twice or thrice in order to say, okay, next time this ball comes, I'm going to hit it like that. So that means he is honing his competencies in hitting the ball much better in the next time. So this is where I think each one of us will like to know that if our competency, if somebody else is doing better, how we can enhance our competency in order to become even still superior to the other level and all that. And that's how we manage to do much better.
Very right, sir. Thank you.
Right? Any other questions? Which is
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have one more question.
yeah. Please.
So we talked today about the utility pricing and costing.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know, how it can be increased.
Yeah.
Where do we place the demand and supply in this utility pricing and costing?
See,
Because
if
we
the
at least,
demand, let me answer that. If the demand is much more than the supply, you tends to go because your willingness to pay is much higher. So you keeps on rising. If there's a scarcity of certain product, you are able to your willingness to pay is much higher. Huh? So if like in the COVID environment, and you see sometimes the sanitizers were in high demand,
yes,
huh? And we were able to, we were willing to pay much more, and that's where you goes up, and that's why the shopkeeper also increases the price because they want to make more profit. So demand, higher demand means higher willingness to pay. That means you is higher. If the supply is much more, demand is less, you see we are seeing number of shopkeepers which are willing to pay. So people keep on reducing the demand, and your willingness to pay is also goes down because you're not that keen now. The supply is very much available. So you in a high demand environment, you becomes higher and higher.
so it means that demand and the market, both of them, they somewhere, you know, influences the you. And
Yeah, so now that's why you depends on the market condition as well as the product. If the product is very valuable, product is very stylish, product is high quality, you keep on. Now, see, you want to buy a time measuring, you want to buy a watch, for example. You can buy a watch which is 200 rupees available in the market. But if you want to buy a Rolex, which gives you a much higher satisfaction, you are willing to pay much higher than the normal watch, Titan watch or something, or let's say ordinary watch, which is there. But then your value, willingness to pay is much higher for a Rolex watch. Your willingness to buy a Maruti is certain amount, but then if you get a Mercedes, your willingness to pay is much more because that gives you much higher satisfaction. And satisfaction comes from owning a particular Mercedes, for example. And you're able to, your willingness to buy is a much higher price. So you depends on number of factors.
one example of you could be, I mean, the market influencing you could be, you know, we actually
Market demand and supply determines your
yes, like
willingness to pay, as well as the product attributes, products or services attributes also determine your willingness to pay.
willingness to pay.
You is really how much satisfaction it is giving to you by owning or by consuming that product.
So you can be also increased by the marketing, like here there comes the role of advertising as well.
Yeah. By increasing the brand value of your product, you're increasing you, because a branded product gives the customer much higher satisfaction. So he is able to pay much higher. So marketing activity also in the company can increase the you, because it can increase the brand value. So number of activities in the value chain can enhance the you, and number of activities in the value chain can reduce the cost. Okay, so this is what ultimately are the inputs from the strategy point of view, and that's what we're going to discuss in the next session. How do we build strategies? Okay, so this inputs of your understanding of U, P, and C will be very helpful in that strategy building. Any other questions? Fine, if there are no questions, we can probably, Alok, we can probably